So welcome, dear friends, once again to today's satsang. The topic for today's satsang is patience, the shortest path to God. Now, patience is not a passive virtue. Patience is not resignation. Patience is strength. All of us who have studied Hindi to whatever extent are familiar with the sayings, the dohas and the poems of Kabir Das ji. And one of his famous doha is, "Dheere dheere re mana, dheere sab kuch hoye, mali siiche so ghada, fal rituan se hoye." Meaning, even though the gardener may pour 100 potfuls of water on a new seed or sapling, the tree will come, the blossoms and the fruits will come only when it is the right season for them to appear. So in a sense, what Kabir Das ji is saying here is that whatever happens, it takes its own time to happen, and you cannot really hasten the process. So it is you who have to have the patience to keep toiling and to wait for whatever fruits that are given to us by the Lord. And a similar statement has been mentioned in the autobiography by Paramahansa Yogananda. And it is this line has been taken from the Hebrew Bible. It's called the Ecclesiastes. And what Paramahansa ji has said in the autobiography is, "There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under heaven." And in fact, there is multiple lines which go beyond this, and I shall read them out to you. They are very beautiful, and this helps us to understand that time is a great, an important factor in the little human life that we lead. So the Hebrew Bible says, "There is a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to embrace and a time to refrain, a time to speak and a time to be silent." So such beautiful words from the Bible. And we've heard other great thinkers also talk about patience. For example, Leo Tolstoy has said that the greatest two warriors in life are patience and time. And as I was going through literature, I read many of the quotations by people. One of it said, patience is not waiting. It is the art and the attitude of waiting correctly. And the exact definition that is given for patience is also very beautiful. It says that patience is the acceptance or the ability to tolerate delay, difficulty, and disappointment without getting angry or upset. Now, all these things, for example, delay or difficulty or disappointment, these happen to us on a daily basis. And our usual reaction to them is to get angry or upset. And the scripture, on the other hand, says that the masters and the saints says that we must practice the virtue of patience, that we must be even-minded in the face of whatever difficulties that we may have in life. We must stay calm and centered all the time. In fact, on the spiritual path, Master points out that when we come to the spiritual path, then mostly we are restless, and only let's say we're 100% restless and 0% calm. But as we start meditating, these ratios start to change. So slowly we become 25% calm and 75% restless. Then as we progress, a time comes that we can handle 50% of the situations calmly, but the rest of the time we are restless. And then as we progress further, then we can remain calm 75% of the times. But for a few little situations, we still tend to get upset and angry. And as we progress further, as we come nearer to self-realization and God realization, as we come to realize that everything is one and that there is no need for us to react, and we are settled in our own self, then we become what Master said is 100% calm. And whatever may happen in the outside world, we are not affected by it. So that is basically our goal. And for that, we need a lot of patience. So let us study and understand today that how through the virtue of patience, we can be even-minded and calm even at the center of breaking storms. So before we go into patience, let us analyze the daily life situations that make us impatient, or the causes that are inherent in us that make us impatient. And the most common cause in today's world for impatience is that we want to just run. We want to do this, we want to do that. We have FOMO, fear of missing out. So we want to catch up with things and we want to do all of them fast. So I want to finish my job. I want to go to the party. I want to go to the cinema. Then I have to go on a vacation. I have to plan my finances. So I'm basically just running, and I want to do too many things at the same time. So it's the time of multitasking, and people think it's a great thing to do. So we want to do many things at the same time, and we want to do all of them quickly. Now, this is a conditioning of Dwapar Yuga. We are living in that Yuga. And since the energy keeps flowing, we also tend to get caught up with that whirlpool. And therefore, we are always impatient. We are impatient to finish one task and get on to the other task. Now, what is the problem with this? Let us analyze that. Now, if we were to compare the human brain with a computer system, now in computer system, you have this bits and bytes theory. There is this memory of the computer and there is a processing speed of the computer. Both are two different things. So it is not possible, although, to calculate the capacity of human memory, but some scientists have tried to give an approximation as to how much that would be. So now, thinking of the amount of data that we have stored in our subconscious and conscious minds not only through these lifetimes, as scriptures say, through many lifetimes, it is said that the capacity of the human memory is about 2.5 petabytes. And 1 petabyte is equal to a quadrillion bytes, and 1 byte is equal to 8 bits. So that is the human capacity to keep data stored inside, approximation of that. And on the other hand comes the processing speed of a system. So how much data can a human brain handle per second, that is per unit of time? And that has been calculated to be about 120 bits per second. So if we are bombarded with more data, we will not be able to process more than 120 bits per second. And the usual problem with us is that we are dedicating, let's say, 20 bits per second to the work which is at hand. 10 bits per second is thinking of what am I going to do next. Another 10 bits is occupied in the food that I'm going to have later. Another 10 bits is telling me that I have to call back my friend and I have to go on a vacation and so on. So all of that 120 bits is divided into so many small blocks that the efficiency and the quality of our thought, the depth of our thought, and the efficiency of the outcome of what we are thinking and trying to manifest it's really, really, pathetic, and it's kind of narrowed down. On the other hand, of course, we are living in a corporate world, we are living in a fast-moving world, and we cannot say that I'm going to ignore everything else and I'm going to just do one task at a time. So, but we can prioritize. So out of that 120, if we can give to the task at hand about 75% of our attention. And of course, you have to keep thinking in the background, but let those thoughts be in the back of your mind. Let the forefront of your mind be completely concentrated and occupied by the task at hand, whatever you're doing in that moment. And if you're able to do that, then automatically your efficiency would increase. Now, if we consider the example of Saint Lin, he was such a great businessman. And it is said that he would come to his meeting at 11 a.m. and others were there since, let's say, early morning, and they're all talking to each other. They're all restless. And Saint Lin would come into a meeting, sit for 5 minutes. He would listen to everybody. He would take instant decisions and he would go away. And why was that possible? Because Saint Lin said that I go into my meetings only after my meditation, and I keep meditating unless I see the light. Now that is a big thing. So how many of us can do that? And that is why we are restless. So here comes the importance of patience and meditation together. And we'll talk about this a little more. So let's not divide our attention too much. Let us try and be focused on one thing at a time. And that training, that conditioning will help us finally to focus on God. Because as Yoganandaji has said, that meditation is a single pointed concentration on God and his aspects. So if we cannot focus on a daily task, then how are we going to eventually focus the torchlight of our attention completely to God? So this needs a patient training on our part. Another reason why we get impatient is because, let us say, we have invested our time, energy, and money in some project, and no result is coming out. So we tend to get impatient. Also, because sometimes we are working on our own self-transformation. Suppose I'm trying to, break a habit, and I've been putting in my time, putting in my effort, but somehow I feel I'm still addicted to it. So in both these cases, whether it is inner transformation or making outer projects work, we want to see the result immediately. And if it's not coming, we get impatient. Now, here we have Krishna's advice with us. He tells us to detach from the fruits of action. Do your best in this given moment, and then you will have to leave the rest. What is the point in hanging on to the fruits of action when you do not know what the fruit of action will be? You don't know when it is going to come into a blossom and give us a fruit. So forget about that. Come to this moment. Do your best in this moment. Now, other petty reasons that make us impatient. A very common reason that I've seen around is that, when someone is trying to explain to you something, and it's a very simple thing, but they are taking, eternity to explain to you, making long sentences, taking a long time. And here you are, you have 10 things to do, and you're getting impatient that why is this person not explaining things to me quickly? And I kind of understand already. But I think every person, all of us have at least one family member who is like that, or at least one colleague who's like that. So tell yourself that, this is my teacher in patience, and I am in this moment, and God is present with me in this company. This is the person who is the representative of God and who wants me to pause here in my life. Now, I'm not wanting to pause, but God actually wants me to pause at that moment to listen to the person who's trying to say something to me. So sometimes if you are patient enough, you can not only do you hear the verbiage, as Sri Yukteswarji said, but you can feel the other person. So if the person is in need of something, you will be able to feel in that moment as you listen to that person. Or if that person just wants to share his or her energy with you, so you will be serving God by just listening to that person in that moment. So stay patient and try to control your urge to be restless and to move around all the time. A very common petty thing that leads us to impatience is when others are trying to do better than us, or they are in fact doing better than us, not just trying. So here we must remember that again, we are not in a race. So stop racing, because even if you win the rat race, you still stay a rat, you see. So you have to pause and you have to step behind. And first of all, you have to ask what your own goals are in life. Are your goals the same as the goals of the person who's next to you, with whom you are trying to compete? So someone may be really after a high position or a high salary, but you may be after something else. You may want to have more happiness and peace in your life. So just pause back, step back, and see, check what your goal is, and check if your pace and your life is organized according to that goal, and then forget about the other person. And the final cause of our impatience, and I would say this is the most important, is that we do not accept things and situations just as they are. We want that people, situations, and everything should conform to our expectations of life, to our expectations out of people, and that never happens. That doesn't happen at all. And therefore, we are angry and we are upset. So we will later learn how we are going to handle this part of impatience and how we can actually turn the tables and turn impatience into patience. So what should we do is the question. The first thing that a yogi should do is to introspect and analyze and be aware when a wave of impatience is arising within us. For example, let us say we are stuck in a traffic jam, and we think the normal thinking process is that because there is traffic jam around me, therefore I am getting impatient. So that's the usual way people think. But now think of what Master has said. Master has said all situations are neutral. The way you respond is what gives, that the feeling to that moment. So when there is a traffic jam, it is not the problem of the traffic jam. It is the problem of your mind, which is, a vritti is being raised in your, a wave is rising in the lake of your mind, And that is impatience. That is your problem. That is not the problem of the traffic jam. So firstly, the yogi analyzes that the wave of impatience is not only arising within me, but it is because of me. It is my conditioning that I tend to get restless in such situations, and I don't know how to pause. So accept the fact that this impatience is within you. And then set an intention in your life that each and every time you're going to be aware whenever this wave of impatience arises within you. Then what would be the next step? Then again, analyze. Analyze, how do you feel when this wave of impatience arises within you? Do you feel pleasant or do you feel unpleasant? So now we all know impatience can never feel pleasant. It is always unpleasant. So in the midst of impatience, you know that your breath becomes shallow, your mind is also racing, it is restless. You will also have some tension in some muscle or joint of the body. Start being aware of that. And the very fact that you are now aware that impatience is unpleasant, that should motivate you to change impatience into the virtue of patience. And then how exactly are we going to do that is the question. So the answer to that is all the spiritual practices. Now, spirituality is not something that you do that when things are relatively okay, my health is okay, let me now sit and meditate and I'm going to be spiritual. Yes, you do start at such times, but spirituality is meant to come to your rescue. Spirituality is meant to help you get out of suffering. And if the suffering is of that of restlessness, of impatience, then spirituality should come to the rescue. And how? So Master has given us a major toolbox of all the techniques that are there. There is japa, there is chanting, there is prayer, there are affirmations, there is Hong Sau technique, energization exercises, Kriya Yoga. It's a long list and it's a toolbox. Like any smart crafts person, you will use the appropriate tool at the right time. So let us think of the example of the traffic jam again. So normally there is a traffic jam outside. The wave of impatience is arising within us. It is causing us to become tense in the body and mind. My breath is getting shallow. I have a frown on my forehead and I'm like complaining, and so on. So reverse this. Spiritual practice teachings should help you to reverse this consciously. For example, you will replace the frown with a smile. You will be happy to pause in the moment. In that moment, you will take a deep breath and you will say, all is perfect in God's plan. Not only one breath, you can take a couple of deep breaths to change the nervous activity of your body. And if time permits, if the place permits, you can actually go into practice of Hong Sau technique that will make you centered immediately. Besides that, you can do mental chanting, you can do mental japa. All of this is supposed to be practiced when you are in need of it. So get into your spiritual teachings and practice, bring it out as and when you need it, and you will find that slowly you can change the problem of impatience. Also, another thing, all these things you will be able to practice during time of difficulty when you have practiced it, when things are relatively settled. So that means you have to meditate every day, meditate regularly. So unless you have the practice of daily meditation, unless you are able to touch the inner silence on a daily basis, you will not know which is the level from which you do not need to react. So when you touch that silence in yourself daily, you know that no reaction is necessary from that level. And as you meditate daily, that the peace that you develop in meditation, that overflows into your daily life. And then only can you be able to introspect and be aware in difficult times or in impatient times and bring all the spiritual techniques into practice. So meditation is the key. We all know that. But are we really using that key properly? The keys to the kingdom of heaven have been given to us, but are we using them or not? That is up to us. That lies in our power. And we should wisely use the time we have on this earth. Now, interestingly, once we start practicing patience and we have tried a bit, we tend to get impatient with the practice of patience. So we think that, oh, I'm trying to be patient, but here some situation comes and again, I'm restless and I don't know if it's working or not, and so on and so forth. Now, a similar situation actually is faced by Arjuna. So in the Bhagavad Gita, when there's this dialogue happening between Arjuna and Krishna, so what's happening is in chapter 2, Krishna has already explained about the Atman to Arjuna. In chapter 4, he has already explained about Karma Yoga to Arjuna, and he's also talking about meditation and controlling the mind and the senses. So Arjuna has a very natural question, just like all of us, that, oh, this mind is so restless, I cannot control it. And all those who are meditation teachers would know that most people in your class have this problem. I cannot control my thoughts. My mind is so restless. How should I meditate? So the same question Arjuna is putting to Krishna, that, my mind is restless. How do I control it? And in chapter 6, verse 35, Krishna says to Arjuna that the mind is more difficult to control than the wind, but you can control it by two things. What are those two things? One is abhyas, means practice. The other is vairagya, means dispassion. So these are the two tools that the Lord himself has given to us for controlling our mind. So when we practice daily, when we meditate daily, when we touch that reality which is within us on a daily basis, then practicing patience becomes easier, and we should know that it is going to take time. It is not an overnight thing. The other thing that Krishna has told us is about dispassionate, means rising above our attachments, rising above attachments to things, to people, to situations, to expectations, and specifically, from the fruits of action. So we must detach ourselves. Unless we detach ourselves, we are not going to be patient under any circumstances. So we have this direct advice by Krishna. Let us try and follow it. Okay, so now moving further with patience, according to Buddhist tradition, you can practice patience at multiple levels. So for example, the first simple level would be a gentle forbearance, means just restraining your reactive process. So for example, let us say you are a working parent and you have worked through the whole day, you're physically and mentally tired as you come home. And when you reach home, you have two children who of course want your attention. They are little less in age, and one child is throwing a tantrum because he wants something, another child is throwing a tantrum because he or she doesn't want to do the homework, and here you are, you think you're so tired and you're trying to pity yourself, and here is the situation which demands your complete attention. So one reaction could be that I start to yell on the children, and I get irritated and I'm angry, and I can say, oh, you don't understand how tired I am, and so on. So that is one way of reaction. But the other better way of behaving is that as a parent, I should understand that there are priorities for children, and this is the time that the child needs my attention more, and it is more important than my tiredness in the body and mind. That will always keep on. The whole life you will at the end of the day say, I am feeling tired. So that is going to happen every day. But this is the time for the child. This is the time, precious time, that the child needs you. So in that moment, you take a deep breath. You know that this is your priority too. This is your dharma also. And you patiently, joyfully, willingly, you give complete attention to the child. And you find when you are able to do this, you will draw energy from the cosmos, and your tiredness and your restlessness will automatically go away. It's because from your heart, you're practicing wisdom, you are practicing patience, you are practicing willingness, and that will draw the extra energy. And you have restrained your senses. So this is gentle forbearance. And all of us can practice that. And when we do that, we can sleep happily as a parent. At the end of the day, we can sleep satisfied and happily that, yes, we have done our part. Another example is, the daily life office example. So many of us may think that, a particular colleague is a bit dumb-witted or a little stupid, so to put it. And that person has actually poked you or remarked on you, and now it is really pinching you. And now is your perfect opportunity to reply to that person and shame him in front of many people. So you are thinking all these thoughts in your mind. But if you are a yogi, so then one way is that you remark against that person and you shame him and you kind of take your revenge. But the other way of the yogi is that he holds his tongue. So he is aware that this impatience to take revenge is arising within him. He is aware that he himself is responsible for that wave of impatience. It is not because of the outer circumstances. And then he does not speak out unnecessarily. He controls, he restrains himself from reacting in that situation. And that is also gentle forbearance. So basically here we are trying to control our reactive process. The next level of forbearance would be an endurance of hardship. So when actually difficulties come in our lives, now these may be acute or chronic. So for example, in our medical lives, we see, so a person has come with severe pain abdomen. He was fine yesterday night, but today morning he has a severe pain in the abdomen. And you check and you find it's acute appendicitis. So you refer to the surgery department. He gets operated, and in 1 week, completely, he's fine. So it's an acute phase of his life. And if he is now, again, there are two attitudes to this. So one person can say, okay, this has happened. Okay, let me now get admitted and go through this process and I will be fine soon. And another attitude can be that I start complaining that why this is happening to me, why only me, why is there so much pain, and so on and so forth. So the pain in our mind, just like the happiness is a mind, it's a state. Similarly, the endurance of pain is also a state. And the more calm we are, the more meditative we are able to see pain from a distance and not be totally emotionally, enslaved by it. But other situations may happen when pain is chronic. For example, there may be a person with rheumatoid arthritis or recurrent, cancer patients who has severe pain. Now, what does one do in such situations? It's a very difficult situation. And we cannot just say that, oh, this world is unreal and let me just, does not exist. I'm only imagining it. That's not the case. So it is really, really real for that person and he's really suffering from it. So what does such a person do? So here again, you have to come inside of yourself and you have to kind of remove the mental magnification that pain has. So again, the transcending your ego. So instead of being a victim here all the time, if we just say that this is happening as part of God's plan, and I will try to remove myself from the situation, and I will not just keep saying why this is happening to me, I, me, mine. So ego transcendence is a very important factor in chronic pain management, or chronic, it could be an emotional pain, it could be a difficult, a psychiatric patient in your house that you have to handle. So you have to firstly remember that God has put you in this situation for some good reason, and that it will help you rather than complaining and cribbing all the time. It will help you to stabilize yourself, to accept the situation, and then work upon it. And then once you set an intention that, okay, I'm going to try and be calm and patient, work on it on a day-to-day basis, a moment-to-moment basis, rather than thinking, oh, what will happen 6 months ahead? Oh, what will happen 1 year ahead? I'm going to die soon, and so on and so forth. You are alive in this moment. So think of this moment, bring all your attention to this moment, and know that God is present in this very moment. He is here and he is now. He is not going to meet you at some other time in your life or some other place in your life, because God is here and now. But where are you is the question. God is always in the here and now. So a person who is suffering should actually bring himself to the moment, because he will be able to connect to God only in that very moment. And therefore, he should live his life moment to moment. And, we have heard Jesus also saying that the problems of the day are sufficient thereof. So think about that day, what best you can do in that day, and don't worry too much about the future. And then third part of this whole picture is acceptance, which we've talked of partially. But without acceptance, how will you deal with the unpredictability of life? So right now, situations are conforming to my expectations, but tomorrow they will not. So unless I learn to accept the agreeable part of life as well as the disagreeable part of life, till then, I'm going to be limited. I'm going to want the life to go in a particular way, which is never going to happen. So come out of that limitation of a specific expectation, flow with life, see life on a daily basis, wonder and be amazed by how it is changing. Change is meant to entertain us, but it becomes painful when you get attached to the things of the world. So dispassion, Krishna says, be dispassionate. Don't be so much in your likes and dislikes that when things change, you don't like it. So be centered in yourself. Be yourself, the Atmic self. And if you're not attached to the changing things of the world, then you will not have any pain, you will not suffer. And this does not mean that now people may say that if I'm not attached, how am I going to function well in this world? How am I going to take care of my children? So there is a difference. There is a difference between loving something and doing something enthusiastically without expecting the results, or being attached to something and saying, I, me, mine, this is mine, I want it, this is the way I want it. And if it doesn't happen like this, I'm going to be sorry and I'm going to be angry. So these are attitudes, and every devotee has the right as well as the duty to choose correctly at every given point in time. So you must practice all the virtues that Master has given us. And patience is very important. And as we read in the morning reading, Swamiji has said that patience is the shortest path to God. How is it the shortest path to God? Now, let us analyze scientifically the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. In Sutra 2, Patanjali says, Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha, means yoga is the neutralization of the vortices or the whirlpools of consciousness. And then in Sutra 3, he says, Tadha Drashtu Swarupo Avasthanam, meaning then you will realize who you really are. What is your true Swarupa, that you are the Atman. So if you are able to neutralize the vrittis of your consciousness and your mind, then you will be able to know that you are the Atman. So in sequence, Patanjali gives you the result, the quest as well as the result. So what happens when we practice patience? From the outer world, we come into the inner world. From reacting, we come to appropriately responding. From losing energy or from the senses, we gain energy, we raise our energy, and we get focused. So in a sense, we are actually neutralizing the vritti of impatience in our mind consciously. And once we are able to neutralize the vritti of impatience and of course other vrittis, then what will happen? Then we will come directly to God realization. That is why Swamiji said that patience is the shortest path to God, because patience helps you to rest in yourself, to be centered in yourself. And only when you rest in yourself and be centered in yourself can you realize God in this lifetime. So definitely it is the shortest way. So as we near the end of the satsang, let us talk about patience on the spiritual path. So when we come on the spiritual path, we are very, very enthusiastic, and the masters also give us encouragement, but maybe we have some visions, maybe we have some nice experiences, and we are attracted to it. We want to keep moving on, we learn new things and so on. So we are excited about it. But then a phase comes in the devotee's life, a yogi's life, where he does not feel as much inspired and as much enthusiastic. So these plateau phases, these low phases or dry phases keep coming to everybody. Now, this is the time to practice patience and perseverance, because without that, we will not be able to meet the goal. And do not be restless by thinking that, oh, I'm not progressing, I'm not able to do something. So if you just see on a day-to-day basis, you will not realize that the spiritual path has actually changed you. But if you look back in your life to weeks, months, and years of your dedicated sadhana and your love for God, you will find that indeed the old habit patterns that used to have clutch you, they have loosened, that you are more calm, that from 0% calmness, you have come to at least 50% calmness in your life. So you see life in longer rhythms, and you find that the teachings are working, the techniques are working, and you stay patient and you keep working with all of these. And that's what Master said, that if you plant a seed, you are so giving water, you are gardening it, you're not going to take it, uproot it every day and say, oh, is it growing or not? Is the seed sprouted or not? Is the sapling coming out or not? No. You will plant the seed, you will give it water, you will give it your love, you will fence it around with good company of satsanga, of great souls. And then as the tree of meditation increases in size, it gives fruit and it gives flowers. So we have to practice patience. And that is why Lahiri Mahashaya also said, Banat Banat Banjai. So as you progress slowly, gradually, at your own pace. So there are days where you will walk like a tortoise, but there can be days when you can be a horse horse, sorry. So every day can be different, but just keep moving in that direction, keep practicing whatever master has taught us, and we shall be able to go to Chitta Vritti Nirodha, and we shall be able to recognize our true Swarupa. To end, my dear friends, I will again quote a poem by Kabir Das ji. And this poem is called Man Lagyo Yar Fakiri Mein. So this is how it goes. It says, Man Lagyo Yar Fakiri Mein, Jo Sukh Pavo Ram Bhajan Mein, So Sukh Nahi Amiri Mein. Kahat Kabir Suno Bhai Sadhu, Sahib Mile Saburi Mein. So Sahib is my beloved Lord, and Saburi is Sabar, that is patience. Oh my mind, who loves to be a mendicant, take the name of God, because the joy that will come out of that cannot match the joy of the riches. The joy of the riches is very less indeed, very low indeed. So my friends and fellow saints, be in patience, live in patience, and through patience, you will find the beloved Lord. So with that, we end today's satsang, and let us just share the power and blessings of these teachings with souls everywhere. Let us pray.